people, even if they're paying rent. So we're going to get into that in a little bit. But we're going to first go over my watch list this morning. I want to talk to you guys about a couple of the Forex ideas that we were watching here. So I haven't taken a trade yet today, but I do want to talk to you about Euro CAD, CAD JPY, Euro JPY, and Euro USD. You can see those are the four pairs that I have flagged here on the right side. So we're going to be able to go into this in detail and really break down how the D1 entry and the D2 entry can present on multiple days across the same currency pairs. So let's first just blow up the 15-minute chart because that's where we like to start to identify some trend. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Kareem. Good morning, Craig, Felicia, Vince. Good morning. Everybody's here this morning. Kenneth is here. Luca's here. Harry's here. TJ's here. Good morning, guys. I appreciate y'all being here. Make sure you just give me a thumbs up. Let's keep the thumbs ups coming because that's all that YouTube cares about for some reason. Whether you subscribe or not, that's on you. I don't care. But if you're enjoying the feed, if you find value in the information that I'm bringing you and you like the way that I present it, just give me a thumbs up, please. That's all I ask for. There we go. I see everybody smashing it. Okay, so we're going to talk about Euro USD. Now remember, yesterday is a bank holiday, okay? So we did get a pretty decent move on Euro USD to the upside, and I think that move was actually predictable because of the price action we saw last week. We're going to move into that in a second. Euro JPY made the list this morning as we were watching it to move higher off the 50 EMA. Notice here, the one thing that I don't love about this, you've got a swapping TDI. We talked about this a lot last week. We've talked about it all May. May was the first month that I did this streaming thing, and I did it almost every weekday unless I was traveling or doing something else. And we've really focused in on the TDI and specifically that yellow market sentiment line. That market sentiment line is really going to determine where high probability trends lie. So Euro JPY made the list this morning because I see the EMAs are in an uptrend. I've been long biased on this pair since last week. It really hasn't moved on Friday or yesterday on Monday. It really didn't move much. But now today, markets are open. We have a little bit of news coming in. You could see this continue to the upside. And all the higher time frames are long biased. If you look at the 1 hour, TDI holding the buy zone really nicely. Price action above the 8 EMA above the 21. I love that. If we go to the 4 hour, same thing. 8 EMA is above the 21. TDI has been holding the buy zone all month. So it's clearly long biased here as well. And then if you go to the daily, same thing. Look at price holding the 8 EMA. It's been an unbelievable move on this pair. Since the last time it was at the 50 EMA, it's up about 7%, 6.75%. It's a big move for our currency pair to hold a strong 6% trend like that. These are the kind of trends that I like to identify because we can look for repeated entries in that same direction every single day. And if it doesn't present on the days when it moves lower, you just don't trade it. That's really what you do. And you wait for the cleaner trend, here it's clearly long, to come in. So today, looking for long ideas makes a lot of sense to me. So we'll come back to this in a second. Now, Euro JPY could align with CAD JPY. Look at CAD JPY. Here, TDI starts in the sell zone, pulls into the buy zone during the Asian session, breaks out of the Asian range during the London Open, and we are retesting the Asia high for another move off of it here as we move into the New York session. So again, CAD JPY, JPY on the quote pair, Euro JPY moving higher, both of them moving higher. We're going to look at this specifically because this has CAD on it, and so does Euro. Excuse me, my throat today is weird. Euro CAD. So Euro CAD, we were looking for short ideas here. Mukhtar is one of the guys in our VIP chat. He called this out in the group this morning. I didn't love it. Of course, you're going to know why, because of the TDI. See how it starts the day in the buy zone and then drops down into the sell zone? I didn't love that, but you are able to identify 1 minute divergence here that then ends up taking this thing lower. So we'll go over that in a second. We're also going to touch on Euro CHF. I see some questions in the chat about Euro CHF. That is a pair that you can see is not on my watch list. The reason it's not on my watch list is because two things. It never tested really well, meaning you would get signals potentially, but the signals would not last. They would either pull back or they would move sideways. And the second reason is it's got a very low ADR of only 38 pips. It's less than 40 pips on an average day. So people were asking me this morning, could you look for entries here? Could you look for entries here? Because of the TDI being in the buy zone. So let's just start with this because then I don't need to come back to it. TDI in the buy zone here makes sense to look for longs. But if you look at this, first of all, you see a lot of pins, and that's typical with CHF pairs. You're going to get a lot of pins. So that's why, again, I'm not a big fan of trading this. You will never really see me trading this. Go watch my old recaps. You still will not see me trading this, right? So here, if you were to look at this, there is no A1 formation. And I know some of you guys are saying, what's the A1? What's the A1? I'm going to send you a link in the chat right now. That'll take you to the beginner course that we have. Now, it's called a beginner course because it's the first course we have, but that doesn't mean it's for beginners only. I go over some basic stuff, but I think I only give you what you need. Once we get over the basic stuff, that second half of the beginner course goes into the A1 entry. Now, if you're looking at Euro CHF this morning and you're looking for that A1 entry, you don't have it here. This would not be a solid shift candle, in my opinion, to trade because it's still in the Asian range. You see the Asia high, Asia low. I don't think that you would want to trade in that range. On top of that, if you tried to trade this big candle breaking out through that previous high, that would technically be an overextended bar. It looks like it's the biggest bar of the day. So there, you would anticipate normally, after an overextended bar, it pulls back. And that's exactly what it did. So I don't think there's an entry here. I know some of the guys in the group chat were trading it this morning. Let me see if I can send a message here. Yeah. So we'll send a message. So for everybody that doesn't know, this is the group chat. We have a couple of important chats. The first one here, the coaches only chat. This is where only Jerome, me, Lindsay, and Ryan, the coaches at ASFX, can talk. So everybody can just follow us. You see everybody giving me all the emojis and listening to what I'm saying so they get my input. And then we have the live trading chat where everybody can chat and ask for feedback. And in here this morning, some of the people were looking at Euro CHF, and I was just not a fan of that. I think James was making a joke here. He was like, Euro CHF's looks good today, bro. And now look where it is. That's exactly why I don't like this pair. So if you want access to that VIP chat, you have to take our courses. I don't just let anybody into the chat to pollute the waters. You know what I'm saying? You got to take the courses so you know how to trade an A1, what goes into reading the TDI, what goes into reading the price action. All of that is explained in the courses. So that's Euro CHF. I don't really want to linger on that, to be honest. Let's go back to Euro JPY as we're seeing this move up. So here, you have an upshift from 2:30 in the morning here, where the 8 and 21 EMAs cross. We call that a shift candle. So it shifts up in the direction of higher time frame trend. We already talked about Euro JPY being long biased. So as the 8 holds above the 21, you want to expect that uptrend to continue. As it pulls back to the 50 EMA, notice how the 8 and 21 EMAs stay crossed up. The 8 stays above the 21. They don't cross back down. So it's holding that upshift, which tells me this is a great place to look for pullbacks, either for an A1 entry or a D1 entry. Now here, I don't see an A1 entry yet. If we continue to watch, maybe we get one. But what I do have here is divergence on the 1 minute. You see it's bullish because the RSI is rising. Price is falling, just barely, but it's falling. And off that divergence, what do you have? We'll draw it. A higher low, and now another higher low. So it's building structure off that 50 EMA, which tells us that we can look to identify a D1 opportunity here. I think personally, I like to wait for the 1 minute TDI to pull into the buy zone, that 1 minute sentiment. So there, I would be looking to enter this trade somewhere here. Maybe 134.02 would probably be my entry price, 134.01 just because of a spread. And I would personally use the most recent higher low as the stop loss, which to me would be this one. I wouldn't use the closest one, the most recent before that. And then if you sync this up to the other side, drag it across. To see this go to high a day, you'd get about 1.6 R, which is about 10 pips, risking 6. Not that great. We also have yesterday's high here in the way. So if we draw a little line on the body there, not the wick, always use the bodies, you can see it had resistance to that level already. So we might slow down here, but if it can break through there, it's got plenty of space to move. ADR is 63 pips. So if it wants to go full ADR and continue that uptrend, it would move 36 pips, which would be 5R. So this is definitely a D1 idea. I think the only thing where people might get a little caught up here is where to put your stop loss. And it's semantics to me, because now you know the risk reward is 5R to high a day. Even if you put the stop loss at the bottom of the divergence structure, it's still 4R. It's still great. What's more concerning is that yesterday's high level, where I drew that line, that it already showed resistance to here. So I'm really paying attention to see if it breaks through yesterday's high, because if it does, you'd anticipate now with the TDI in the buy zone that it breaks yesterday's high here, maybe a retest, and then the move higher to ADR. It could just be a pin retest. It doesn't have to be a solid like body on that level, but that's what you'd be looking for. And all you're doing if you take a trade like this, once you learn how to identify the D1, you take the D1, as I just showed it to you, and then you're watching on the 15-minute to see if it holds the 8 EMA, this yellow line. We want to see that 8 EMA continue up and price stay outside that 8. And that's what we're watching for on Euro JPY. Questions. Hey, Austin, how many knocks would you find on the D1 at EJ at the end of the Asian session? I wouldn't trade this at the end of the Asian session just because the TDI is falling into the sell zone, bro. So that's not an ideal situation for me. I would only consider trading this one long because the TDI has now pulled itself into the buy zone. If you want to do that, I would definitely call it a C setup. That's how I would look at that, because you're trading against the 50 EMA. You're in a downshift, so you'd have to trade into an upshift. It's just a low probability trade. Even this one here, to me, technically you could still call it low probability because number one, you've got that swapping TDI. You see the L50 goes into the sell zone. But also if you draw like this, falling RSI, and you match that up on top from today's high at the open to here, now you have another level of resistance in your way for this Euro JPY move. So there's two knocks on this, which is why I'm not in the trade, and I think it probably doesn't break past 134.10. But I think it could. I could understand why people would look to trade that long, but I think for me, you've got swapping liquid 50, bearish divergence, and you have a horizontal level in your way. Those are three knocks. I'm not starting my week with a C setup. It's that simple. Let me write that down so everybody can save that. C setup. So first, swapping L50, swapping market sentiment line, bearish divergence on top. And then here is that last 15-minute candle close on EJ and A1. No, Josh, it's not off the 21 EMA. I mean, it might look off the 21 as it pulls higher, but if you zoom in on that body is not touching the 21, is it? And then the third thing is here, yesterday high, horizontal level is in the way. So now I'm going to take a picture of this. What I'll do here is also label this. I try to give as much detail as I can, not just because it helps you guys, but by me writing this out, it helps me get better. Yesterday's high. Okay. And I'm going to move this to the right so everybody can see it. Anis said, what is the liquid 50? That's the market sentiment line. If you don't know what that is, I would consider taking the courses, bro. Can I have your idea on GJ D2 signal A or B setup? I can get there later. Yep, just hang tight with me. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I'm glad I was able to identify the overextended candle. Yeah, see, now this, who is this? Rushir? Rushir's always listening. He understood that this was a potential formation. He sent the markup. Look at all that text. I love that. This is great. And then I'm going to send this here. Now, people can, if they're trading EJ because they like the idea and they've taken the courses, they can now have my thoughts. If they didn't see something and now I just help them identify it, they can still get out and still make some money on it. Okay, so that's Euro JPY. Let's go over to Euro USD. Now, that was a D1 entry long. What I'm going to show you on Euro USD, I need to explain like back into last week because it really does go all the way back to here. So this is Thursday, then it's Friday, then you got Monday over here. Thursday, it moved sideways with this bullish divergence on the bottom. I thought this bullish divergence with higher lows, as you can see, was going to have us move higher on Thursday into Friday. Friday, it ends up dipping lower and then bouncing. Literally, it dropped and bounced. But look at the TDI here. TDI is basically in the sell zone all day. So I think it makes sense to see that move. But overall, I think this divergence is still kind of in control, showing you there's a lot of support here. If I was to draw this all the way across, this is the zone from Thursday. A lot of support there still. It's like it just grabbed some orders and then came right back above it. So yesterday, when I woke up and I was just looking at the market, because I'm long biased Euro USD and I see it sitting sideways yesterday to start the week, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, this looks like it's still holding the levels from last week. And if I go back and grab this zone, look at that. It's still holding that zone very nicely. 1, 2, 3 hits to it before it wants to move higher. So what I did, because I was up around 5, 6 o'clock, I looked here on the 1 minute to see if we had bullish divergence that would signal we were ready to move higher. And if you go to the 1 minute, guess what you find? It looks like a D1. So let me show you. See, I already got it marked up. Right there. 5:42 into 6 o'clock, RSI is rising. Price action is falling. That sets the bottom. Then you can see where I have this horizontal line here. That sets the higher low. So here it sets it. Here it tests it. Then it pulls that TDI into the buy zone. And once it's in the buy zone, it holds the buy zone for like 2.5 hours or so. And then from there, you can see on the 15-minute, it's got the price action above the 8 and 21 EMAs. So it's holding that 8 EMA and it takes off into the afternoon. And it just sits there at the end of the day to end the bank holiday at 122.26, 122.30, right around that level. So then coming into today, naturally, I'm going to still be long biased. However, with this falling TDI on the 15-minute now entering the sell zone here, I don't love that idea for longs. But when you have a strong bias, you can carry it into the next day. So even if this sits sideways today, or maybe comes down to the 200 or something like that, I can still look to buy this tomorrow. So for me, using the D1 here yesterday confirms that long trend is still in control. And then today I can carry it and still look for buys. There's no reason not to. But you can see, again, divergence, sets the bottom, higher low, pulls the TDI into the buy zone, and then it moves. Okay? Now, if we were to go over to today's price action, let's see. Not really any divergence, because if you connect it from this RSI low, price is rising. And then in here, maybe you have some, but I'm not ready to buy this yet. It's in a downshift. It's under the 50 EMA on the 15-minute, so I'm not ready to buy this. So that was my thought there for Euro USD, similar to Euro JPY long ideas. Now here on Euro CAD, it's just an inverse. That's all it is. So the TDI could be better on the 15-minute for sure. See how it swaps from the buy zone into the sell zone, that liquid 50, that market sentiment line. How that comes down into the sell zone here, that swap is the first thing that I don't like about the setup. Other than that, though, to look for short ideas here, after it's set that lower high here from the move overnight, that's where I would say it's a good spot to go in and look for that short D1 idea. It's a D1 because you're trading in the direction the TDI and the EMAs are telling you to trend. More than not, this is short biased, at least on the short term here. What I don't have that I normally like is a retest of the 50 EMA on the 1 minute and then a move lower. See how it pulls that 1 minute TDI into the sell zone and it just falls? It doesn't retest the 50 until here. To me, that's way too low because I'd be getting short down here on the 15-minute. It's just very, very low near the low a day where it could bounce. So I wouldn't get in short there. To me, I couldn't find an opportunity to trade this. If I could have, I would have. I like the 50 EMA break, but I don't get the retest that I like. So I just didn't find an opportunity. You could look back on this and say, I would just get in here on that first break of the 50. But if you do that 10 out of 10 times, I would say 7 of them are going to be a little bit tough. 6 of them are going to be a little bit tough. Half of them might work, like this one, where you just take the 50 EMA break, stop at the divergence high, and you rock the D1 like that. Could happen. But I would like to tell you guys, especially if you're in ASFX, it's safer to wait for the liquid 50 to get in the zone you're trading, and then you get a 50 EMA retest, and then you get better risk reward. Not that this is bad risk reward, it's just not 100% certain. On top of it being a swapping liquid 50, let me blow this up just so you can get all my notes. So we'll call it a D1. What I don't like about it, so I put a little star for my knocks. The first thing, swapping liquid 50, market sentiment. Second thing, trading short into an upshift. So you would be going short here when the 8 is above the 21 EMA. Can you see that in there? 8 is above the 21. That decreases the probabilities of the trade because the probabilities would be better if it was already in a downshift, like it crosses here or like how it was overnight. So it's just 2 little knocks on it. So to me, I would say this is like a B setup, maybe a C setup. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking there on EuroCAD. Any questions on EuroCAD? There's no divergence on top for Euro USD on the 15-minute. Laura, be more specific with your question. There is divergence on top for Euro USD, but that wouldn't mean that we wouldn't look for longs still. You know what I mean? You can see the RSI falling here and price action rising for sure, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't still look for longs. There's divergence many times while the trend still continues. You only take the divergence more seriously once you have multiple breaks of the 50 EMA like you do now. So yes, like I said, I'm not looking for longs right now. 1, because you're under the 50. 2, because the L50 is coming into the sell zone. 3, you're in a downshift. 4, you have bearish divergence. It would not be a high probability long trade today, not like how it was yesterday. Yesterday, the TDI was in the buy zone more. You had that structure coming higher. The only thing in your way was the EMAs. So I think the long idea on Euro USD yesterday just feeds the trend, and then maybe today we're getting some sideways movement before it could continue tomorrow. Okay. So that's Euro CAD, that's Euro USD, and Euro JPY. CAD JPY, someone was saying, could this be considered an A1 entry here? You could consider it an A1. I wouldn't say it's the worst setup. I think you'd like to see it a little bit more off the 21. That's kind of floating off the 21. Personally, I wouldn't trade it. I'm not in it. It is a 3-candle formation. You can't argue with that. I think the main issue is that it's a swapping TDI. And if you go back to yesterday, let's just say you mark off the Asia high right there. Actually, instead of that, let's draw the zone. Just going to draw that zone right there. you would be trading right into this horizontal level that it already just bounced off of. So yes, the TDI is rising for sure, but when you're looking to trade right here into that zone and it's already shown resistance, that's something else that I would knock against this as well. So here, that I would say A1, swapping liquid 50. Again, that decreases it. Yesterday's high in the way. I would give it a C setup just because that horizontal level is very significant to me. And it's also pretty close to overbought here. And it's CAD JPY, which is just, it's a CAD pair. So that's always going to be tricky. And I guess the other thing that can make it a C setup, three things right there. So now I'm going to take a picture of this. Let me fix this though. Hold on. Do you guys mind when I do this and I send the pictures? Do you guys like to see the whole thought process? Just give me a thumbs up if that helps. I'll see the thumbs ups coming in and I'll know that that's what you guys like. I think it's good because then if you're not in ASFX, you get to see what it's like to work with us. And if you are, I mean, you still get the value here.